Welcome to the Cinefied Podcast, the show where we enlighten you on what film to watch next by discussing the latest projects brought either to the silver screen or the comfort of your own home. My name is John. I will be moderating this discussion surrounding Fantastic Four First Steps. Joining me tonight is the writer and reviewer for Fantastic Four First Steps, personified Tyler Strandberg. We also have Josh, Cassie, not Pedro Pascal, but Dempsey, and our boss leader, super awesome editor guy, Connor. Today, we are discussing the highly anticipated film, The Fantastic Four First Steps, the second reboot of these characters this century, and is the 37th film of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, kicking off Phase 6. The summary of Fantastic Four First Steps is forced to balance their roles as heroes with the strength of their family bond. The Fantastic Four must defend Earth from a ravenous space god called Galactus and his enigmatic herald, Silver Surfer. Our reviewer for Cinefied for this film was Tyler, and the excerpt from Tyler's review is as such. Despite some uneven elements, the Fantastic Four First Steps stands as a strong addition to the MCU and ends with an exciting cliffhanger ahead of their next major team-up in Avengers Doomsday. The heart of the film lies in the team itself, whose chemistry and emotional depth make it a thrilling and memorable watch, even when the plot falters or the CGI feels off. And to get started is kick off a very quick roundtable of spoiler-free thoughts on Fantastic Four before we dive into some deeper material. And we'll start with the man who reviewed the film himself, Tyler. Why don't you tell us what you thought about Fantastic Four?
Yeah, I really liked the movie. I was personally really looking forward to it. Ever since that first trailer, I believe I said in my review that score where the whole choir sings the Fantastic Four, that kind of theme. It's been stuck in my head ever since then, and I've been so excited for this film ever since that came out. And then there was that clip that went my viral with Julia Gardner. Saying heralding Galactus, and I was like, oh, this movie's gonna eat. This movie is gonna be so good. And I wouldn't say I'm a huge fan of the MCU. I do keep up with the movies. I do. I get press screenings for them, so I go see them for free, and I'm like, why not? Might as well. And I enjoy reviewing them, especially for the website when I can. But this is one I was really looking forward to. And I do think that it was a little bit uneven in places. I think that the plot was a little bit more clunky than it could have been. I think it could have been just a little bit more streamlined, this one definitely felt a little bit like a TV show at times. But nevertheless, that didn't stop me from really enjoying the film. And it just was a fantastic film. No pun intended. Sorry. I was going to say that at some point, but I didn't mean to do it that early. I thought it was really good, and I enjoyed it. I really enjoyed my time. I would happily go see it again in the theaters.
Awesome, great. Thanks so much. All right, what do you think, Josh?
I am a big MCU watcher. I'm not a comic reader, but I've always kind of been a comic book movie fan. So I was really looking forward to this. I liked how self-contained it felt. It felt like this wasn't a movie where you needed to come and, you've watched a bunch of shows and seen 36 movies before it. You could kind of walk in blind. I thought the casting was pitch perfect. I love the chemistry between the four leads. The only thing that I'm stuck on a little bit is it's hard not to compare this to Superman that came out 2 weeks earlier, which I think is maybe, if Superman's a 9, this is maybe an 8 for me. I did love the score, though. I like the music a lot better for this than Superman. I thought that was really impactful, and I really liked it.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. Cassie, let's get you in here.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I will echo what Tyler and Josh said. I also really, really liked it. I agree. It felt like a TV show at time, that TV show being WandaVision, because of the 60s aesthetic was what it made me think of a lot. I almost wish it leaned a little more into the 60s aesthetic, but that's just a me thing. That's not like a fault of the movie. I just love 60s stuff. I too loved that it is one of the few Marvel movies that you can watch without feeling like you have to do weeks and weeks of homework to be able to understand what is going on. I feel like it's one of those movies you can recommend to someone who says, well, I haven't seen all the Marvel movies. Like, what one should I watch? Like, this will be the one that I recommend to them. As far as the chemistry and the cast, I will admit I was a little unsure for the first maybe 20, 30 minutes, but once it got going, I completely bought into it. Loved Pedro, obviously. Don't even need to say that. Thought Joseph Quinn was a huge standout. I loved him way more than I thought I would. Also, I feel like Julia Garner is not getting her flowers. I don't know if it's because she was mostly like CGI Silver, but she was like, I loved her character in this movie. And I know like Silver Surfer is the thing that's been around before, but yeah, I loved the storyline between her and Joseph Quinn. I actually thought was really fun. And I did cry at the end as well. So, I mean, if a movie makes you cry, it's impactful.
Awesome. Thank you, Cassie. It should be noted, you mentioned WandaVision, and the director of First Steps, Matt Shackman, he actually directed all of WandaVision. So
makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense why you feel like his thumbprint is transferred from WandaVision into Fantastic Four. All right, Dempsey, what's up, man?
Okay. So I don't want to rain on anybody's parade. I just want to say it straight out. I didn't like this movie. There were things that I admired about it. And I would just want to clarify, yes, I saw the movie with the people wearing blue, not the movie about the blue people, the Smurfs. Okay, so we're talking about the same movie here. All right. The movie to me, not that it was uneven, but it was like very bottom heavy. Like I think the best part about it to me was the last 20 minutes. That was the most engaging. I found it to be very talky, very, for lack of a better word, just going to say boring for a large bulk of it. I feel really bad saying all this because like I was really interested in this movie. I spoke with Connor the other day. I was like, I don't know, maybe I'm not excited because, I've seen the trailer a million times, but like I was definitely intrigued going into this movie. I did admire the aesthetic, the 1960s aesthetic. I think they nailed it. The score, I mean, Michael always kills it whenever he does a damn score. So I was not surprised here. I think Pedro Pascal was Reed Richards. Watching him in this movie, I just thought about like Adam Driver and all the other people that were rumored to be up for the part at one point. I was like, I could not imagine them nailing it. This is the way Pedro Pascal does, and Galactus was amazing as well. So there were things that, like I said, I really admired and I really wanted to love more and have contribute to me loving the movie more overall. But as I said, it just wasn't my cup of tea. So we can elaborate more, but those are just some of my initial thoughts.
All right, coming out the gate swinging.
Wrong.
All right, hey Connor, big dog, what do you think?
Well, I'm a mixed bag when it comes to the MCU in general. I used to be so excited to go out to the theater and watch them, but as of late, it's just kind of become kind of like a chore to go out. When I do like go and watch it, I end up having most of the time a good time with it. It's just I don't have a bunch of hype to go out and watch these films anymore, and I think that has to do with a lot of the last phase. I think that this year, this has been a pretty decent year for Marvel so far. This is the final one, I think, for this year. I don't think we have another one until Avengers or Spider-Man. But so that's next year. So I do think that this is a good way to leave it off. I think that it does kind of build sort of, and we brought up Superman. It kind of brings up kind of like a hope for what's to come in the MCU. I think that it's cool where they're going with this, but the problem is that this is, as we've mentioned, like a standalone adventure. It doesn't really connect super well with the rest of the universe. So I am curious how it's all going to merge together. And we kind of had a little teaser of that in an after credit scene of, I think, Thunderbolts, which I was surprised was not really brought up here at all. I do think that I grew up with the Jessica Alba, Chris Evans, Fantastic Four, and I know they're not known to be the best films, but I just had such a fun time as a kid going to see them. It's probably like where I probably gained my first celebrity crush on Jessica Alba at that time. So I mean, it just has such like a big thing for me. So I was excited for what this film could do, and I think that it's a fun time all throughout. I think this casting, I was worried about it, and I think it's comes off so faithful to what I know of the comics. And I think that my biggest worry was Pedro, actually, because I wasn't sure how he would fit into the role of Reed, just based on the other film iterations, not Miles Teller, I guess the one that I mentioned before his version, because I really like that Reed Richard. I don't know the actor's name that portrayed him previously, but I thought he was fantastic. This might be one of my favorite things that he's been in, Pedro, because I've always thought that he's a good actor, but I've never been like blown away by him. And I think this is the first time that I was really like sucked into his role. So I personally think that this is a great addition to the MCU. Just hoping that they keep leaning into it and don't go back to like Ant-Man Quantumania.
Awesome. Thanks, Connor. I'm going to lean a little closer towards Dempsey in that I don't share Dempsey's opinion all the way. There's lots of aspects to Fantastic Four that I did like. It was very self-insulated, did not require homework. It did feel a little bit like Superman in the sense that it felt like there's a movie that already happened that we missed prior to this one. This one just kind of shoots you out the gate, all about they've already been established. Love the score, the aesthetic. Actually, some of the acting is what I had an issue with, and some of the sequencing was very uncomfortable to sit through. But overall, I think it's an interesting addition to the MCU. I'm curious to see where it goes. For this next round of questions, what we're going to do something a little different. I'm going to ask a question. I'm going to have about 8 to 9 minutes on the clock, and it'll just be like a round robin. Raise your hand if you want to jump in and say something. If you don't want to say anything, that's totally cool. And then about 10 minutes or so, we'll move on to the next question before we close out. Sound good? Okay.
Sounds good.
Cool. All right. So, going back to Pedro Pascal, because he's unavoidable. First question. Pedro Pascal has become the man for all seasons, from Star Wars to The Last of Us to 2 A24 releases earlier this summer, The Materialists and Eddington. And now he has, he's joined the MCU. This guy is everywhere. Will Pedro Pascal's star continue to shine bright as he ostensibly carries the mantle of MCU leadership as Reed Richards, like Iron Man and Captain America did previously? And, can Pedro be that North Star for the MCU, or will Pedro fatigue wane his influence over time? So
no, I will not get fatigued. Yes, he will still be that star. Anyway.
Well said, Cassie. Lady, a few words. There, call it a day, everyone.
Next question.
No, see, the thing with Pedro that I think people don't, this won't be a huge soapbox, but he's been acting since he was like 18, 20 years old. And he is just now getting his flowers. Like he became super famous and successful in like his mid to late 40s. And so I don't know, when people say like he came out of nowhere, like that's really not true. So, and I think that's evident in because you can tell he's having the time of his life with his work and promoting his work, which I think is a testament to why people find him so likable, because he struggled for a lot of years. You know what I mean? So I think that's a big reason why people like him. And I, for one, am enjoying, seeing him in all these different roles. I loved him in Eddington. We already talked about Eddington, but I think I'm more impressed with his acting, honestly, every time I see him. So, and that's in like unbiased. I think his acting is getting better.
So all right, Dempsey. Thank you, Cassie. Dempsey, I saw you. I'm going to get to Connor first, though.
Well, I was just going to say that you brought up the leadership of Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans as Captain America, and I don't know. I just feel like at least at the time that those two came into the picture, there wasn't like a huge like onslaught of like them in other things. And I think that kind of is a penalty against Pedro, is that there's so much of him everywhere. While like Robert Downey Jr., you know, he had his whole era where he wasn't being cast in anything, and they gave him a shot because of his personal life. And I think that, and then you got Chris Evans, which of course he was around, but he was never like the big box office draw that everybody hoped he would be. So I think that was another kind of like risky move. I think this is a very predictable casting as far as like getting, not necessarily for Reed, but just to get him into this universe because he's a draw to the theater. But I don't think that he's going to be like one that people will like not get tired of. I do think that if he continues at this pace, I do think, unfortunately, Cassie, I do think that people will get tired of his appearances and stuff.
I never will. I will never get tired of him. Let me clarify.
Cassie hath spoken. All right, Dempsey, what you got, man?
Connor nailed it. I love Pedro Pascal. One of my favorite working actors today, Cassie. I'm on your side when it comes to Pedro. But to kind of summarize and recontextualize what Connor said, like the MCU Marvel has been a star maker for so many people. Like Chris Evans was everywhere after he was Captain America. Scarlett Johansson also been around since like she was a little girl. She was everywhere after that. Jeremy Renner, you know, he coming hot off of some Oscar buzz, but you know, helped him get more roles. The only, I think, person that wasn't already a star at the start of the MCU was Samuel L. Jackson, but he was just so damn perfect as Nick Fury, you couldn't resist. I like Pedro Pascal as Reed Richards. I just want to real quick. I read a bunch of Fantastic Four comics in high school. Probably my favorite are the Marvel Zombies ones, where there's like basically like a prequel series to Marvel Zombies, where you find out that Reed Richards is actually the one that brought the disease into the Marvel universe because he's so obsessed with exploring what's out there that he ends up getting infected, and he has this hubris to him. And I think Reed captured that hubris perfectly. Like he knows he's always the smartest person in the room. He knows that nothing matters more than getting it right. And it's just like every single scene, I felt that from Pedro. Like he, even the scene, I mean, I don't want to talk about spoilers too much, but when he has to make that crazy decision in the I guess the second and a half act, whatever you want to call it, he knows that there is no other way than to do that thing. And I just think that him being in this movie is great, but I worry about the future because he's in hot demand now. And I would hate for the franchise, not just Fantastic Four, but the Marvel Cinematic Universe to kind of stumble because he doesn't have availability. I do think the right move is to keep him and have him be the new Robert Downey Jr. or whatever. But I do also think there's a problem where he might just be too popular at some point, and they may have to pivot to some other smaller characters and different actors. So just want to throw all that out there. So I hope that made sense. I hope I wasn't rambling too much.
No, it was good. Good. Thanks, Dempsey. Does anyone have any other thoughts on... All right, Josh, what you got, man?
You keep saying Dempsey. I believe you're referring to Pedro Pascal. Anyway,
check his SAG card.
It's a common mistake.
Look, I mean, I'm looking at the thing on screen. It's uncanny. I think in this universe, at least, we're going to see Pedro leading the team for 2 more movies, and then they're going to reboot. I just think we're going to see Fantastic Four and Doomsday, and then Secret Wars, and then we're going to get X-Men for a bit, and whoever is around is going to take a back seat. So I don't think we're going to get oversaturation in the way that it might have been with Evans or Downey or somebody else. Just my take.
Thanks, Josh. Tyler, you got something?
Yeah, I don't necessarily agree with the fact that there's all this fatigue around Pedro in comparison to Robert Downey Jr. or Chris Evans or even Scarlett Johansson, because I do think they all were around for a pretty significant amount of time. It wasn't just like the MCU that like catapulted their careers. Sure, it really helped their careers a lot. But especially Scarlett Johansson and Chris Evans, they were getting really steady work. I think the only comparison would be Robert Downey Jr. He was not getting work for a long time, and it was seen as a really big risk to cast him as Iron Man. That was mostly because a lot of his substance abuse issues that he had dealt with in the late 90s and early 2000s. I do think that Pedro has similarly been around for a really long time. I don't understand the hype of like, he's just been out of nowhere. I mean, sure, he has a lot of films right now, but he first really became huge in Game of Thrones in 2014. We mentioned The Mandalorian. That was back in 2019. So that was 6 years ago. Even The Last of Us was 2 or 3 years ago with season 1. So it's not just like he came out of nowhere. In my review, I believe I said that his stardom has kind of been a slow burn and it's really starting to pick up. I will say I don't think he's going to be the quote unquote face of the MCU like the other names that we have thrown around necessarily were, but I don't think that's because of Pedro Pascal fatigue. I think that is because we are so inundated with a plethora of MCU projects right now. Even Kevin Feige said that he's planning on slowing down the next saga, which I think is great. In comparison to phase 1 of the MCU, it was one movie maybe every other year, maybe once a year for a while. And they were all individual movies up until that first Avengers movie in 2012. And I think that's what really gave all of those individual stars their own specific stardom, is that they had their own projects. They had time to build a following and a fandom and create the MCU around them. As compared to this film, there's already so much, and it's so hard to really stand out amongst all of the other projects going on right now. Even in this project, it's not really Pedro Pascal's own movie. He's part of a team, and he's working with 4 other people who are all doing just as amazing work as he is. And so being the face of the MCU, I don't really think so, but I do think he does a really great job as Reed Richards. I wouldn't say he's the best in this film. I think that definitely goes to Vanessa Kirby. I think this is Sue's movie through and through. But he does a really great job as being kind of the crux of the team in this film.
Awesome. Thank you, Tyler. Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Kevin Feige wanting to slow down. Phase 6, which this film kicks off, is only 4 films over the next 2 years. So it's like they've been hitting the brakes sufficiently. We're going to move on to the next question. And also, when we pivot, I'm going to say we're going to move into spoiler territory. So if you want to speak on specific sections or scenes of the film, you have that liberty to do that now. And then also, again, we'll take about maybe 10 minutes, kind of keep it kind of shorter, kind of catch up on some time. And then I'll just, again, raise your hand as you want to chime in. So this film story was, as we said, pretty self-contained and simple. There's not a drawn-out origin story, no required viewing homework from other MCU projects that was needed. So it is Fantastic Four first steps, the breath of fresh air that the MCU needs.
I mean, I don't know if it necessarily is the breath of fresh air. I think that it's a good starting point. I think it's just a good like breather, maybe. I don't think that it's really like pointing in like a brand new direction that like I think ultimately everything's leading to these 2 Avengers films. And I think that they're obviously just kind of figuring it out as they go. And there's jokes online about ChatGPT and whatnot being used for the new Avengers. And I do think that that's the issue I have with this film. What I like about it is it's standalone, but the also issue of it being standalone is that it doesn't feel like it's going to connect well with the rest of the universe yet. And I do have faith in the Russos enough when it comes to Marvel, not with anything else they do. But so I do think maybe they'll be able to intertwine this with the rest of what they're doing. But I think that as a standalone, it's really cool, but I don't really like see it as like, oh, this is connected with the rest. Like I feel like I'm rambling, but someone take over, please.
All right, Josh.
Yeah, this feels like an intermission to me. This doesn't feel like a new direction. This is like the little stop we go to, and then we go back and finish the kind of story that they've been building since Endgame.
Thank you.
And
That's what I was trying to say, but I just didn't do it.
I got you. That's why I'm here. And now we're in spoilers too. I feel like I could be wrong, but I feel like the post credit in this and Thunderbolts are maybe scenes from Doomsday. I feel like I think we did that prior to Infinity War 2, where we had some scenes that were actually teased in post credits that became part of the narrative. So I feel like we're going to see what we saw in Thunderbolts in the end of that, and what we saw in the end here with the kind of Doom tease being in the next movie.
Yeah, the MCU for a while was, teasing in good faith in earnestly with like I think it was maybe Captain America or something, and the end credit scene was Thor's hammer being found, which led into Thor. There was like direct connections, and then a couple MCU films around phase 2, phase 3, they started like going to nothing. There's still no resolution on some of these credits. Anyone else have any thoughts on Fantastic Four being a breath of fresh air or a intermission, as Josh put it pretty well? Go ahead, Cassie.
Yeah, no, I was thinking of the analogy. It's like when you're going for a run and then you slow down for a walk just to like catch your breath. That's what this felt like. But yeah, one thing that I did notice, and it's not like, I don't know, it's neither here nor there. Maybe it's a gripe. I don't know. Because I'm overly sensitive about this, but MCU for its female characters really relies heavily on like being motivated by their children. I've noticed, but like only the women. Because like WandaVision too, like her sole motivation was like getting her kids back, right? And she was only able to like save the entire planet because she had the strength to like get her baby back. Which again, it's just an observation. It's just an observation that I made.
Reasonable. Yeah. It's sometimes it feels like, some characters are, even female characters with a lot of lore, a lot of history that goes back decades, it seems like they're all kind of funneled into one specific motivation. That's usually family oriented. And whereas I think some of the male characters get more freedom and more latitude to do different things. So it's interesting to see if that becomes a touch point going forward, but Fantastic Four as it stands, I agree. It is that intermission, that kind of little lull a little bit, whereas it's just this almost side story. Like, oh, by the way, this other thing exists on this other Earth. And it's very simple. You just get to know the characters. This is who they are. It's their own isolated film. And then we're going to drop them into this bigger overarching story. So, I don't think it demanded too much of us to kind of understand who they were and what they were about. So
I wanted to say too, I do kind of wish that we had gotten the origin story from them, because they spent like 2 minutes talking about it. Like, oh yeah, we went up into space and then something went wrong and we got these powers. And I'm like, that sounds like a cool freaking movie. Like, I want to see that movie too. Maybe that was just me.
Go ahead, Tyler.
I think that the MCU has done really well with taking these properties that have been done before, especially in the early 2000s, and just kind of giving them to us. They did that with Spider-Man too. It was done by Tobey Maguire in the early 2000s and then by Andrew Garfield in the 2010s. And those are both origin stories as well. And when we saw Spider-Man Homecoming, it was really kind of like, we know what Spider-Man's origin is. We don't need another one. We know why he's here. We know what we're just going to introduce him into the MCU. And I think it's similar with the Fantastic Four. We saw it in the 2000s. We saw it in the 2015, albeit not as great. But I don't think we really need another origin story to this. I think that little news cap that they did was pretty sufficient in just kind of giving us like the quick and dirty version of like, hey, here they are. Here's the impact they've had on the world. And I was ready to just jump right into the story.
Yeah, I think they made a good compromise with that. To your point, Tyler, like, yes, I don't need to see Batman's parents get murdered in the alley for the 17th time, like, or whatever, or Superman falling to Earth from Krypton. Like I know that. And I think this film, they kind of had that meeting in the middle where it's like, we're not going to give you a full origin story because many of you rather, have heard this tale a time or two. But I think also they want to have that little bit of a bubble montage in the beginning because their bottom line is this next generation of viewers who probably have not seen Jessica Alba and Chris Evans and Michael Chiklis in the early aughts or the Fan Four Stick disaster from about a decade ago. So I think it was a soft kind of introduction that kind of gave us just enough, to where we're not being exhausted, like we're being waterboarded with the same story again, but like my kid who never even heard of the Fantastic Four kind of gets some context as to who they are. So it was an interesting choice that they made for sure. All right. What's up, Connor? What you got?
Can I just ask a question that kind of, after watching the film, I was just curious for those that have read the comics, with their origin story, is the Doctor Doom, is he a participant in their journey to space? Because I feel that's what happens in the original films and in the 2015 one, but he's not on their journey in this film. Is he like supposed to have been?
Dempsey?
So Doctor Doom's a very interesting character because he has a bunch of different origins. I do think because there's a bunch of different, like there's the Ultimate MCU universe, there's the classic MCU universe in the comics. I think in at least one instance, there is a version of him that is the one that's been done in film. But my understanding is Victor Von Doom had like a very rich history as his own character in Latveria, and that he kind of like becomes like the leader there and has his own kind of things going on. Almost like the best way to compare it is like what's going on in Wakanda, where like that's a place in its own world in its own time, with its own rules. And it's even alluded to in the movie. I don't know if you caught the blink if you miss it moment at the UN meeting where she was talking.
The empty chair.
Yeah, they show Latveria, and I think it's 2 empty chairs actually, and I thought that was a cute little nod. So they established that there is a leader of Latveria in their world, but whether or not it's or whether or not he looks like the Doctor Doom that we're going to get in Doomsday, is up to interpretation. So I'm sorry it's not a clear and cut answer, but yeah, Victor Von Doom is a very interesting villain, anti-hero. He has a bunch of different interpretations, which is why I'm really excited to see what happens with Doomsday, because they're making him to be, I think they call him the something Iron Man, superior Iron Man, superior Doom or something like that. There's this very specific name.
Oh, God Emperor Doom.
Yeah, God Emperor Doom. There we go. Yeah. That kind of character, it seems that they're subscribing to. So
MF Doom. Yeah.
MF Doom. Yeah.
Well, thank you. Yeah, that gives me a little bit more insight into it. Thanks.
All right. Awesome. Moving right along. In the context of the MCU as we know it so far, did we all get the Fantastic Four film that we deserved? Why or why not? Dempsey.
I will keep this brief because I just spoke. We got the Fantastic Four movie that we deserved. This is the 5th Fantastic Four movie that has been made. That's including the Roger Corman one that was technically never released in the 90s. I think it was the 90s. And then, the Tim Story ones in the early 2000s, and then the Fant Four Stick a decade ago. So technically this is the one that fans deserve, but I do not feel like this is the version of the characters that we deserve. And I'll just quickly say, like, I did not like, The Thing really has thing to do in this movie. But he has a love interest, which I found was very interesting. But like I said, he's just more of a background character. I found like the little arc with him growing a beard was like the most interesting part to his character. And then that one recurring joke, say it, you know, whatever. And
Yeah.
Johnny's a story. Yes, he's had his time to shine in the comics, and he even, I think, sacrifices himself at some point and dies in the comics, which they almost kind of allude to here. But for a majority of this film, his arc is basically being like, oh, you know, I'm the guy who's like kind of smart, but not really. And then he becomes the Duolingo owl with those golden records or whatever. So, yeah, I love Sue. I think Vanessa Kirby was fantastic as Sue. And then Reed, as you already know how I feel about Reed. And then I feel like I love the fact that they introduced Franklin. Actually, I have a special guest here to talk a little bit about Franklin. No, I'm kidding. I was upset that we didn't do more because Franklin is a freaking cool character. If you guys ever get a chance to read about him and his connections and his to the multiverse and his powers, like I feel like we're really getting into more exciting territory with what they teased as opposed to what we got. And yeah, they didn't do exactly what I think they should have done with the characters. That's all.
Hey, you know, next time, just let us know about we need to put on some body armor the way you're throwing shots everywhere, Dempsey. My God.
Pedro Pascal.
All right, Josh, I saw your hand up, man. What's up?
Yeah, I would just take issue a little bit. I thought the Thing arc was really well done. I thought they did a lot with a little. I know in the other Fantastic Four movies we've gotten, you've kind of seen the Thing struggle with, you know, I'm a rock monster. You guys all got really cool powers, and I look like an orange rock. I thought we got a lot of kind of emotional beats in a little bit of time. I mean, I love that actor. I love the work they've done in Girls and obviously The Bear. I really enjoyed that part. I like the Natasha Lyonne cameo. I thought she was really, again, really good in a short amount of time. But that was satisfying to me. I really felt for the guy. And I thought just a few shots of him kind of walking the street, seeing his reflection, interacting with a crowd and interacting with Natasha Lyonne's character, I thought that was powerful, to me at least.
Connor, you had your hand up, man?
Yeah, I kind of going off that though. To me, I wish they would have. I know it's an hour and 55-minute film, and they don't have a lot of time to spare. But I do wish they would have fleshed out Natasha Lyonne's character a little bit more, because she's only in like 2 scenes, and it's just kind of like, I did think like when he goes and sees her and he's just like, I'm here to see you, and I was just like, I mean, maybe they've met each other before our first experience with them in this film, but we don't have that, you know, context. So I do wish they would have fleshed that out more. But I do think that what I like about this version of the Thing over, and I honestly don't remember like anything about the Thing in the 2015 one. So I'm going with the one from the 2005 one, I think, which was just depressing. I mean, him coming back and then his wife or fiance just like throwing the ring down, like it's just a depressing like story. And I'm kind of glad they kind of skipped over that part of his origin. And they just kind of like made him be like, yeah, he's the strong guy. He's the crowd pleaser of the bunch. Yeah, I mean, I liked his character, and believe me, I was super doubtful about his design in the trailer. I was like, I don't know how this is going to go. But I think it really worked in context of the film.
And real quick, I don't think you cast Natasha Lyonne unless you're going to pay that off in the future. I just don't think you put her there.
I would hope
this
so.
much. Yeah, me too. If they do, it's a misstep.
Well, I was just going to say, like, this is the Fantastic Four film we deserve, because this is the film that puts Natasha Lyonne in the MCU. It's all been leading to this. 37 films, we got Natasha Lyonne where she deserves to be, at the top. I'm going to die on this hill anyway. But no, I like the older Fantastic Four films from the early aughts. Yeah, they were kind of depressing, but they also were kind of hokey. And I think fitting in the tone of MCU, like overall, I think this version of these characters fit thematically with the MCU as it's been brought to us. They're a little bit more grounded. They're more bonded together. I felt like they were more of a family. Like, I like Chris Evans as Johnny Storm, but he was also kind of a dork and a jerk. And so is Joseph Quinn, but he's like a dork with a brain, and it works well with the rest of the team. And that's with even the Thing. I think the Thing, he was more like accepting of who he was and where he was at as the Thing, as Ben Grimm as the Thing, versus like 20 years ago in that the earlier rendition, he was still kind of moping around like, I'm a rock and that's all I'll ever be. And so cool. Anyone have any other thoughts on this movie being the one we deserve? Yes or no?
I like that segue of cool.
Yeah, I worked really hard on that one. Thanks, man.
You're welcome.
Cool. Tyler, what's up, man?
Yeah, can I swear on this?
Fuck yeah.
Okay, we got hot Pedro Pascal. We got Vanessa Kirby serving face, cunt, and mother. Like, I don't know what else you can ask for. I think this is it. That's all I have to say about that.
Whoa, Tyler, man, you and Dempsey both bring out the big guns. Man, I was not prepared, but I agree with you. Yeah,
Tyler, you're my new favorite.
It was well done. Even in that first trailer, she's like doing the little force field, and I'm like, she's serving cunt waves by manipulating the light meter of the mother. I'm like, I'm eating it up. She is so good.
Okay, there was one scene though when she was complaining that she hardly got any sleep because she was up with the baby all night, and her eyelash game was like still on point. And I was like, girl, you slept 12 hours last night. Like, shut up.
But that's what I mean. Like,
that's why I took off a half a star on Letterboxd. That's why I was like 4.5 stars. She looks like she slept a lot. She's lying.
Hey, Connor.
That is not a newborn. That is not a mother with a newborn baby. That is someone who gets a full night's rest.
Right.
Tyler is now a podcast regular. No matter what, he has to always be on this show.
We'll see about his availability, but I'm cool. Tyler, please tell me you saw at least the clip of the interview where someone said a similar thing to what you just said directly to Vanessa Kirby's face, and she did not understand why he just called her a cunt.
I did not see that.
And Pedro Pascal is like, no, it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
He's not helping those rumors at this point.
Yeah, he needs just to come out already. Like, come on, man. We love you anyway. All right, we're gonna pivot from that very colorful discussion. So I think the Fantastic Four does not cater to overt political messaging or any ideological pandering, which Disney has been accused of doing for at least a decade plus now. And that's a rarity in these turbulent current times that we're living in. Do we think Marvel, and by extension Disney, is pivoting to more neutral storytelling position to kind of play it safe? Tyler, did you have your hand up? Sorry. Oh yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I did. I think Marvel has always been very neutral and very moderate. I think they intentionally have the themes of their films very in between. Like, you could interpret it as very right-wing, you could interpret it as very left-wing. A very great example is, a lot of people think that, is Marvel pro-military or anti-military? A lot of people think like, well, it's super anti-military. The military is always the bad guy in these movies. They're always like causing trouble, blah, 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 blah. Some people think it's very pro-military. Like, you have these superheroes forming together as a team, as a unit, fighting for something that they believe is right. And they very overtly did that with Civil War. Like, do we go under government influence and have some regulation, or do we remain free agents? I think they've always teetered that line. I think they are trying to get to the broadest possible audience, and they succeed very well. I think this film does so very well because the theme of Fantastic Four has always been surrounding family, and that is the strongest theme in this movie consistently ever since. I mean, they start the film announcing that Sue is pregnant with Franklin, and then Franklin becomes basically the MacGuffin of the film throughout the entire thing all the way to the end. And I think that's the strongest part about this. I think that's going to resonate with a lot of people. And I think that's what's going to make this a really great film that people can take their families to and see as part of the MCU.
Awesome. Thanks, Tyler. Josh, go ahead.
To me, this movie was political, and maybe I'm projecting here, because it showed how nice the world looks when you have smart, compassionate, intelligent, capable people leading you and to look up to in positions of power, and how peaceful the whole world looked, and how when there was an issue that needed global attention, everybody was like, yep, all right, cool. To me, the quiet political message here is, what if you had capable people in positions of power? Wow, look, everything's running pretty well. That's what I took away.
As long as their baby isn't the solution to the big global catastrophe coming, they turn on them so quickly. But also, to your point, Josh, and I agree, that's not an issue I did have with this film, was like Reed Richards. Granted, he is the smartest man in the room, on the planet, etc. He's like, we have to build these things around the world, and the whole world was like, you got it, boss. And like overnight, they're already, it's great. And I think,
but they've had them for 4 years.
Sure. Yeah. But like, again, globally, I had to suspend my disbelief for a little bit for that. I bought into it because it's a under 2-hour movie and we had to keep things moving. But I was like, I don't know. But I think Kevin, the great Kevin Lau, who could not be with us tonight, you're echoing his statement, which I do agree with, that all art is political inherently or implicitly or otherwise.
Here we had a big orange man who was nice and compassionate.
Yeah, this wasn't South Park. Does anyone have anything else on this particular question? Cool. All right. There we go again, Connor. Okay. It's been 17 years since the MCU jolted to life with Iron Man. The current MCU, as we know it, is scheduled to conclude at the end of Phase 6 in 2027, and there'll be a reboot, ostensibly. Kevin Feige says there are future MCU film sagas planned all the way to 2032. So I'm asking everyone here, just kind of quickly, just give me your assessment. Where do you sit with the MCU thus far? And how do you feel this new Fantastic Four film fits into your assessment? Connor, out the gate.
Well, I just basically the MCU, I was very slow to getting on board with it from the beginning. Like, it took me several watches to get on board for Iron Man. Like, I saw it back in theaters and I was like, I don't really get the hype. But then the more I watched it, I was like, I really love, what they were doing in this film. And I loved how they kept building it up. And that continued each film. Like, I loved with some, not great ones mixed in, the 4 films I don't really like. But I was on board enough all the way through Endgame. And then basically Endgame is where things went sour for me. Not Endgame itself, after Endgame, post Endgame. I think Spider-Man No Way Home, really after Endgame, is really the only standout for me. And then really that, and then Thunderbolts, and then now this. I don't think that there's really been anything that's like really blown me away. I think Shang-Chi was fun, but that's the thing, is I don't think they're doing a good job of building up to this new Avengers, and that's the problem. And I think that's my worry, is that they're rushing into this because they know they're in a bad place. And I don't think, the Russo brothers have turned around some great MCU films, but they're really putting a lot of pressure on these two dudes. And to be honest, every interview I see with the Russo brothers, I think they're very full of themselves when it comes to the MCU. So I'm hopeful, but I'm also with a grain of salt. So after these Avenger films, though, I don't know where they're gonna go, and I honestly don't have any care. So I'm just kind of playing it by ear at this time.
All right. I saw Dempsey, and then I'll get to you, Cassie.
Connor hit the nail on the head for me. I think that they are rushing it. And it just because Connor said he didn't like the way the Russo brothers were in interviews. Is my own little version of that meme that one of the Russo brothers has. But anyway, I think that this is a fine step. Not a great movie, but a fine step in, whatever direction they're headed. But it's just too much. They lost me a while ago. Like I still try to watch as much of the MCU content as possible, but like with the what ifs and literally yesterday, as of the time we were recording this, they announced that they moved up the release of the Eyes of Wakanda TV show, which feels like another kind of necessary step to understand. They just threw down all 6 episodes of Ironheart over the course of 2 weeks, not allowing you to really pace yourself. I haven't even caught up with that. There's already rumors, well, not rumors, but like it's confirmed that the X-Men are already in the works. And I can't help but feel like Doomsday is a way for them to kind of rush into the X-Men. Like, I don't even think that they're necessarily rushing to do the next Avengers movie as much as they just want to jump into a property that people are already familiar with, because as Connor said, I think they're aware of how not bad things are, but how much more receptive people are to this stuff and how much more critical people are now, because that's just how everybody is nowadays. I think that I would be fine with a reboot, but I think the biggest problem to me is that they just keep on playing it safe. And I'll use an example from the film. Spoiler alert, Sue's dead for like all of 2 minutes in this movie. And that honestly was, to me, the most exciting part of the movie. No shade to any female characters. Once again, I love Vanessa Kirby. I love what she does in this movie. I would have loved to see her. I cannot wait to see what she does next. But the fact that they were going to kill her off was like, oh my God, are we going to see a Fantastic Four without Sue Storm? Like that, I think that just says a lot, that something like that excited me. Like in Thunderbolts, they killed the least memorable character of all, Taskmaster. They keep on killing off all these really obscure and minor characters, Colby Smulders and Secret Invasion, and I could just go on and on and on forever. They're eliminating the safest choices, and I think we need to see more of like Robert Downey Jr. sacrifice, even though he wasn't. The fact that he's coming back once again shows that they're just playing it too safe. They're relying on familiarity, and that's just my biggest gripe with the MCU now. That's all I'll say.
Cassie.
As you were talking, Dempsey, I was thinking if they killed off Sue Storm, it would become 3 men and a baby, or 2 men and a monster and a baby. Yeah. So I don't necessarily have thoughts on like whether or not the story is moving too fast, just because I don't know enough about where the story is going. But just, I feel like the MCU as a whole is like death and taxes at this point. Like it is just so cemented in our pop culture. And if you don't like get on the bus is going to run you over. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like I have no choice but to like go into every one of these movies with an open mind, like hoping for the best, because yeah, if you say, like it's just not doing it for me anymore, whatever, like, unfortunately it's like 40% of the wide releases in movie theaters these days are Marvel movies or DC. But yeah, I mean, it's just inescapable. And I think like Star Wars, like none of us will live to see the last movie of these. Like, it's morbid, but it's true. Like, I think they're just going to keep going and going and going. And so, yeah, I, for one, choose to lean into it and enjoy it and try not to overthink it, apart from Quantumania, which was trash. But, I'm having fun with it. I'm having fun with the Marvel movies personally.
Josh.
What does Thanos say? I am inevitable. To me, the MCU is like pizza. There's like the saying, like there's no bad pizza. Even shitty pizza is still fucking pizza. If Tyler can cuss, I'm gonna fucking cuss too. I may not go all the way. It's totally a mixed bag. I agree with what Connor said. It's very much a mixed bag for me. We talked a little bit about this in the terms of Matt Shakman directing. WandaVision was my favorite thing since Endgame. I adored that show. That show came for me at least at a time during COVID when I needed some kind of entertainment, and it was such a breath of fresh air, and I loved that. And I loved the way this director has handled, the kind of time capsule pieces. I think he's really good at that. In terms of what Connor said about the Russos are 4 for 4 to me in the MCU in terms of what they did: Winter Soldier, Captain America: Civil War, Infinity War, Endgame. But every movie they've done since then has sucked. So these guys did do Community, right? They came from the TV show Community, which baffled me. I loved Community so much. And when I heard those guys were coming to the MCU, I said, well, why the fuck not? I'm scared of how they're going to handle. They're given a real big job, like Connor said, to handle the end of this whole thing, if that's to be believed before the reboot. They're 4 for 4 so far, but it's a big job.
Yeah, so there's a lot at stake here, and I think there is, but there is not, because after Endgame, there's been a lot of stumbling blocks in the MCU, to include the Disney Plus series. Many of them just didn't hit as heavy as they were intended to. Some of them even became jokes and parodied. And I think what that's done is it's burned a lot of goodwill with the audiences, going into this next stage of this franchise. And I don't think a Fantastic Four film that's insulated like this is going to do a huge favor, other than set up a few characters that are probably going to play a major role down the road. But I think it's almost a little too late. They just stepped on too many tacks trying to get to this finish line, and they were sprinting while they were doing it. So, that being said, let's go ahead and go around and talk about everyone's rating for Fantastic Four First Steps. And how we do it at Cinefied is we have a 3-tier rating system. If a film is terrible, it's an empty popcorn bucket, a mistake. If it's so decent enough, it's a half popcorn bucket or a maybe. And if it's full send, we loved it, it's a full popcorn bucket or a must. So we'll start with Tyler, the man who reviewed this film. What's your rating for Fantastic Four? Any final thoughts on it?
Yeah, I definitely had some issues with the film as a whole. I think that the plot was a little bit too clunky. It kind of felt like they were jumping from like adventure to adventure to adventure rather than one event leading into the next thing pretty seamlessly. And I really had some issues with some of the CGI visuals. I think there was one too many moments where that baby looked like a jar of noodles being spilled, and the thing did not look real, which is stupid to say because it's not real. It's a rock man, but it looked really weird. And I never had those issues with Johnny, a man literally whose entire body is on fire, or Silver Surfer, the Chrome Woman. But despite those, I still think this was a really good film. I really loved the theme of family. I loved the performances from all of the cast. I really thought that it was a strong entry of a standalone film in the MCU, and I would give this a must.
Awesome. Josh?
Yeah, I'd also give this a must. For me, because it was insulated, because it was another universe, because we were told immediately it was another universe, I really enjoyed just the 2 hours getting out of my head, getting out of the news, getting out of feeling like I'm watching a movie about the world we're living in, which is scary as shit right now and really wholly depressing and sad. So just to go into this Silver Age comic book fleshed out in another alternate, time and place with these characters that I just met, but I really enjoyed getting to know them. I love the setting. I didn't have an issue with the visuals. I did see this only once, but I saw it in 3D. Where Superman, the 3D kind of did nothing for me. It helped suck me in just a little bit. It wasn't one of those things where things were flying at you, but it helped me feel a little bit more immersed. So I really enjoyed it.
Cassie?
I do agree with what Tyler said about the baby. There were a couple times when it was a bit uncanny valley there. And I was like, oh, sometimes when I'm watching MCU stuff, I'm like, this is doing nothing to quash the rumors that their visual effects artists are, overworked and underpaid. That said, I loved this movie and I still say that it's a must watch. I think it was better than I expected that it was going to be. I thought it was, I thought the trailer didn't do it justice. I thought that the trailer was actually, or the film was better than the trailer made it out to be. So yeah, it's a must for me. I really enjoyed it. I was entertained. I was moved. I laughed. I cried. All that.
Pedro Pascal, aka Dempsey.
So I also agree. The CGI was a little bit wonky at times, especially at the end where the thing is holding the baby, and all of it kind of just looks very like unrendered. But that was the least of my problems with this movie. To me, I did a lot of self-reflection since watching this movie, and I was just like, could it be superhero fatigue? No, it can't, because I literally loved Superman 2 weeks ago, 2 podcasts ago. I was raving about it. It's just this film just felt like it had a lot of things missing from what I expected a Fantastic Four film to be. This, something that's been this long in the making. And to me, the biggest issue is definitely the fact that it like jumps, like there is no second act. It feels like after they get on the spaceship and come home, and it's been like 30 days, whatever, that they're like, okay, they wanted our baby, and then everybody hates them, and then they pretty much come up with a plan to defeat Galactus. Like we're missing, I feel like there's a pretty big chunk there missing, and the film kind of meanders for a bit there, just like I'm meandering now. But no, I just, it didn't work for me. There were a lot of really great things in it, don't get me wrong, but I wanted more, and for that, I'm going to give it a half. Sorry, guys.
Connor.
I mean, I fully expected, based on how we started, that you were going to give it a spilled. So, half, I'll accept it. I am also a must. I think that this is the best made Fantastic Four film yet. I do think that there are issues with it. I do think that I prefer some portrayals of these characters that have been done previously more than these characters or these actors portraying. I do think that, as we all have said almost unanimously, that the baby is CGI scary, and and I do think that there is that's one of the things that I really liked about this film is the visuals in space, and we don't get a lot of that, but I do like the visuals out there, and that kind of makes me off the little topic that Matt Shackman dropped out of doing Star Trek 4, which is never going to happen now, to do this film. And it just makes me go, well, he would have it's so stunning on the outer space visuals of Star Trek. so that's disappointing. But back on Fantastic Four, I do think that it definitely it's there's a lot of standard MCU stuff here. I think you're going to kind of call how it's going to end. I think that's I think there's a little bit of characters that are underdeveloped. But I think overall, it's just a fun time. It's as I said earlier, the original Fantastic Four film had some depressing elements, and I think that this film just eliminates a lot of that and just makes it a fun hang. So I don't have anything in this film that I personally got emotional about, but I do kind of understand why it would bring a tear to some people's eyes. So I fully recommend it. I do think that it's out of the MCU and DC films this year, I personally like Superman more than this, but and I just felt more energized after seeing Superman than I did this. So, but yeah, I am hopeful for what comes next, but we have quite a long wait.
I also did some self-reflection after I watched this film, and I come to a conclusion, this is the fourth Fantastic Four film this century, and this century, I said. And it reminds me a little bit of the Super Bowl run of the Buffalo Bills in the early 90s, and that's what it is for me. It's 0 for 4. Like, I just do not connect with the Fantastic Four a whole lot. And that's fine. This film just did not do that this group of characters any favors for me. I can appreciate how someone enjoys it. I recommend it to people that would enjoy this type of film. It is a turn your brain off film. It's good to escape because the world is a volatile place currently. The score was great. The aesthetic was fantastic. Some of the characters I liked, the acting I liked, and then like everything. So I'm gonna give this a half. It's not a complete dumpster fire or a spill of popcorn, really. There are a lot of rewarding elements to going to see Fantastic Four First Steps. I just don't think I ever want to see it again. So, but yeah, so not overall not a bad flick. Interesting to see where the MCU takes it from here. So my cat's going to join us for the outro.
Well, real quick, I did just realize that none of us at all mentioned Herbie. I loved Herbie, or Herbert's. I mean, it's become kind of common in a Disney film that you have to have a fun little sidekick, cute character. But it did take a little bit for him to grow on me. But I was all for Herbert's relationship with Johnny. So I hope he returns in future installments.
I intentionally did not mention Herbie because when I went to the movies, they tried to sell me the robot popcorn bucket and charge me $75.
Hey, it's pretty sick. Would you rather have that popcorn bucket or the Galactus one, though?
That was $5 more, $80. Probably the Galactus one, but I digress. Maybe the Herbie thing might have soured me before I walked into this movie. I'm not admitting that, but I just wanted to say that's why I didn't mention Herbie.
Got it.
You had a tainted opinion before you even stepped in the theater, Dempsey. You were already lost cause, man. All right. Thank you for listening to the Cinefied Podcast. I want to thank Tyler. I want to thank Josh. I want to thank Cassie. I want to thank Dempsey. And, of course, Editor-in-Chief Connor for joining me tonight. You can find more of our episodes as well as all of our written reviews on Cinefied.com, including our review of The Fantastic Four First Steps, written by our own Tyler Strandberg. You can follow us on Letterboxd as well as all major social media platforms to stay up to date with our reviews. Now, pop some popcorn, grab a drink, and remember to stay Cinefied.